Together, we'd catch our reflections in long windows, those slim, agile strangers gliding to the next block. But when I thought about my last month in Los Angeles, of the night I had driven across the city, mad with fear, and climbed into my ex's empty bed and put on his missing girlfriend's clothes, it made me curl into a tight ball inside. Who was that Maggie? And how had she become so unhinged, so obsessed and reckless? I didn't want to meet her gaze in the mirror, yet I knew her well. That Maggie had been inside me for a long time, ever since a freezing spring years ago when a young woman's body had washed up on a Vermont lakeshore. The third day I was home, I drove past the bay where my source had been murdered, and my neck ached all the way down to my fingertips, as if I had been holding myself rigid for hours. One cool night in May, not long after, I found myself in the same bed where I had slept as a teenager, tossing, awake. I had to face down that other Maggie, and I wasn't sure I was strong enough to confront her alone, so far away. At 3 a.m, I rose and went to my parents' study, quietly closing the door to cover the whistle of their dial-up modem. My fingers typed an online classified ad for my Hollywood Courtyard bungalow, offering it as a cheap sublet until September. By morning, I had 50 applicants. At least 10 seemed polite, reliable, and incredibly desperate. "I drove by your bungalow and it's so cute. It looks lonely, too. I'll take great care of it." The more letters I read, the more the apartment slipped from me, and my return to Los Angeles as well. I'd had my shot at L.A. Maybe it was time to give someone else a chance. Maybe I wasn't cut out for the city on my own. I had only ventured there because my ex had accompanied me. The next day, I sublet my bungalow to a couple who were uprooting from Boston and wanted a soft landing. He was a TV editor. She was a private school history teacher. They had both gone to Ivy League schools, and one of their references was from a modestly famous writer who adored them and teasingly chastised me for luring them away. The couple knew that I intended to come back in the fall, but could they have the place until January 1st? We know it's asking a lot, but it would make things so much easier for us. "Let me think about it," I wrote back. And the next day, heart pounding, I said yes. I told my parents and my best friend Eugenia about the sublet, but not the extension. As long as I didn't acknowledge it aloud, my bungalow was still mine, and I could return to it and to my job when my medical leave concluded at the end of September. At the same time, I left open the possibility that I would not fly west, and that the Rocque Museum would have to fire me. In truth, I dreaded either future, staying in Vermont with my parents or rebuilding my life in Los Angeles. Instead, I liked to imagine the history teacher, perched on my yellow couch, delighting in the avocado tree on the patio. She might even start gardening a little, setting out terracotta pots of basil and cherry tomatoes, glorying in her first California sunshine. I talked to Eugenia once or twice a week that summer, catching up on museum gossip and relating my mother's perplexingly animated engagement with my hometown solid waste committee. We laughed a lot and kept things light. Still, it felt like someone was laying down more miles between us every time we spoke. When Eugenia asked me one warm August day when I was returning, I said the same thing I'd always said, late September. But still, I hadn't bought a ticket. I didn't name a date. "Still Lives is closing September 15th, she informed me. "We had a big debate about extending the dates because it's still drawing a lot of visitors, but Janice wants us to move on. She says we're not in the business of titillating tourists." I laughed at Eugenia's imitation of our museum leader's deep, brusque voice, but it was hard to imagine our crew taking down the paintings of murdered women, hanging them on racks in our crowded storage room, shrouded by cloth. All those panicked, lovely, and shuddered expressions, all